Okay, in this video I'll be doing some tile work around a HVAC floor register or ventilation register. You can see the tile in question is right here and the ventilation register is right there, the floor vent. I also have DTRA uncoupling membrane down, but that's not really part of this video. You can do whatever subflooring you want to do. So for this I'm using primarily a combination square to mark out where the ventilation register is. You can see I've put this tile in place where it's going to go with the rest of the tiles on the floor, so that's exactly how it's going to sit. And I'll just take the combination square, line it up to where the register is, and then just draw a straight line. Pretty simple. And then for the other side I'm going to do the exact same thing, just flip the combination square around and make another straight line. So I've just outlined the two major edges, and then all I need to do is mark the back edge of this. I'm also going to mark the floor where the tile terminates, and that'll help me measure it out a little bit easier. You can use a tape measure for this. Obviously I just have the combination square in my hand, so I'll just measure it off with that to determine the distance from the edge of the tile to the edge of the ventilation register. And then once I got that distance, I'll mark it out on the tile, sort of scribe a line there, and that is where I need to cut. Now I have two tile saws. I had to get this second small one because the tile saw that I've had for years is only 18 inches and I'm cutting 24 inches. And I'm using a dust mask, hearing protection, and eye protection. Safety first. So I'll put this in a little faster motion here. So I set the fence for the saw at the appropriate position and just cut it until I reach where the vent terminates. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side as well. I find this saw actually has a spot in it where you can't cut. It's not actually wide enough. I suppose you could flip it over, but then I'd lose the line. So I'm just going to freehand it, and it's pretty easy to do as well. No special skills required. I do recommend wearing at least a dust mask, as the porcelain is not the greatest smell in the world. Now to cut the back portion of it, I'm going to use this diamond cutter that I've got for my angle grinder. It's a 4-inch blade. If it's a little smaller, it might be a little bit easier as well. If it's a really big blade, you might have more difficulty because obviously it'll be a little bit tougher on the edges. I'm using some 2x4s to keep the tile off the floor, a couple of centimeters, and then I'm just sort of standing on either side of it so it doesn't move around, and cut along the scribed line, spray it with some water just to help keep the dust down and make it cut a little easier, and then just keep going back and forth until I make it all the way through. And you can see I'm already through in the center. Not too difficult, and very carefully so as not to nick the tile, get those edges, and eventually it'll drop off. So with the first tile down, I'll take the second tile, and I'm going to have to do a rip cut on this one, obviously to cut it to the appropriate length. And I'm also have to accommodate for those 1/8 inch spacers that I'm using. So I'll have to do about a 6-inch rip cut on this. This saw is definitely better. Had I known I was going to one day do 24-inch tiles, I would have bought the 24-inch saw to start with. It's just such an easier saw. It just does a faster, easier cut than that other saw does. Okay, and now that this tile is cut to the appropriate length, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Mark out the edges of where the floor register is, and then I'll take it off and I will mark the distance to the right hand edge of the floor register as well. You can see the other option. If you have a tape measure, you can actually slide it underneath, find out where the vent terminates, and just do it that way. Also acceptable. In this case, a little shorter, about 3 inches, because it's not in the middle of the floor vent. Okay, and because this one is less than 24 inches, after I've cut off about 6 inches, it will fit in this saw. And I'll use this saw to cut the forward and rear edges of the floor register. And then just like the first one, I'll use the angle grinder. Hopefully my head doesn't get in the way too much here. And very carefully and very slowly cut along that scribed line. Once you got a good indentation along the line that you drew with a pencil, you can go a little bit harder, but honestly the blade goes right through this porcelain tile in a matter of seconds. You don't have to press hard. The blade will go right through that, no problem. Okay, and I'll drop this tile in place, take the spacers, and then I'll carry on dry fitting the tile for the rest of the floor. Overall, pretty easy. Obviously this is one that's cut across 2 tiles. If you have a heat register that's gonna land right in the center of a tile, you're gonna do something pretty similar, only just use the angle grinder, since you won't be able to get in there with the other types of saws. Anyway, hopefully that helps somebody out there. Thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.